All right, this should be the week 3 quiz then, up on the screen now. All right, best use of a semicolon. In the morning I drink coffee, semicolon, but at night I drink wine. Does that work? Why not? They relate. It's talking about things that you drink. Why doesn't this work for a semicolon? What kind of pattern are you looking at? Correct. You wouldn't use a semicolon because why? Correct. It has a coordinated conjunction, which would be the word but. So if you have two independent clauses joined with a coordinating conjunction, you don't use a semicolon, you use a comma in that case. So that one doesn't work. Let's look at the next one. Therefore, semicolon, I believe people need to be kind to others. Why do we not use a semicolon for that sentence? Therefore is a transition word. It's a transition word, but it's not an independent clause, right? An independent clause is a complete thought. Therefore is not a complete thought, right? So semicolon separates two complete thoughts, two independent clauses, right? Independent clause and complete thought are the same thing. All right, how about this one? Writing is fun. Last year I bought a motorcycle. Yes, you can use a semicolon there. Anybody disagree? Why do you disagree? They're not related, right? The two ideas. So writing is fun. Last year I bought a motorcycle. You do have two complete thoughts. However, we say in order to use a semicolon, they have to be somewhat related, right? And buying a motorcycle and talking about something that's fun, it's, you know, writing is not really related to motorcycles, so that's probably not the best choice. All right, this one has to be the right answer, unless the quiz is messed up. He thought he was the smartest person in the room. Is that an independent clause? Is that a complete thought? It is. He was not. He is a subject. Was is a verb. He was not, referring to not being the smartest person in the room. That is a complete thought. All right, so that is two independent clauses joined with a semicolon, so that works. Okay, anybody have any issues with that one? No? Okay. All right, next one. A works cited list can include other sources besides books and articles, such as television programs and interviews. What do you think? That is true. You can include audio interviews. You could include videos from YouTube. You can include videos from films on demand. You could include a record album. There are many different sources that you can use. All right, number 3. According to MLA style, titles of books should be underlined or placed in quotation marks on the works cited page. Book titles should be what? Italicized, right? Book titles get italicized. So this would be false, right? They don't get put in quotation marks. That's for articles. Article titles get quotation marks. All right, next one, number 4. If you use a direct quotation from a source, it cannot exceed 4 lines of text in your paper. Anybody disagree? A block quote is a direct quote that takes up more than 4 lines of your paper, and it's still a direct quote. Mm-hmm. So, but you have to remember, a block quote is still word for word somebody else's information, so that makes it a direct quote. All right, a block quote is just a long direct quote. So you can do it. You can do it, but you have to use a specific format when you do, okay? All right, next one. Choose the best use of a semicolon. Because his girlfriend will be at the party, Bobby does not want to go. Does that work? Anybody disagree? Because his ex-girlfriend will be at the party. Is that a complete thought? Is that an independent clause? Why is it not an independent clause? The word because, what kind of word is because? If you're thinking in your mind right now it's a subordinating conjunction, you are correct, and it makes a dependent clause. Subordinating conjunctions begin dependent clauses. All right, so you need to start recognizing these kind of words, like because or when or if. If those start the clause, it's dependent. And we don't use semicolons to join dependent clauses to anything. We use them to join two independent clauses. So it should be the second one. Bobby does not want to go to the party. That's a complete thought. His ex-girlfriend is going to be there. That's a complete thought too. So that would be our best choice for using a semicolon. All right, next one, number 6. I do not like dogs and I despise cats. That's the same thing as that question number 1, right? We have a coordinating conjunction there. So if we use a coordinating conjunction, we need a comma, not a semicolon. All right, so it has to be this. I do not like dogs. However, I love cats. So just because you have a transition word with a comma here, it doesn't change the fact that this is still one independent clause. All right, a transition word is not a clause by itself. It's just a word that gets tacked onto the independent clause. All right, it's still one independent clause there. All right, next one, choose the correctly punctuated sentence. I think a lot of people struggled with this. People are resistant to proper medical care, comma, and Bob Johnson's article, No Doctors Please, confirms this. Is there any problem with this one? Anybody see a problem with this one? Any potential problem? Like maybe that could be a period after please. That's a comma, so that's okay. That's acceptable. Hold on, let me go back to what she just said. Luann said, is there a comma, or is there a period here or a comma? We have a comma, and we actually have 2 commas, because this is indicating what? Anybody know? Why do I set this information off with a comma before it and a comma after it? Not necessarily unrelated, but it's like non-essential information, right? Non-essential. So if we took that away from the sentence, if we just pulled it out, and it said Bob Johnson's article confirms this, that still makes sense, right? We still understand the sentence. So that's non-essential information. Non-essential information gets set off with commas. So that was okay. Any other potential issues with this one? Period after this. That's what I was looking for. That's what I was wondering if somebody would catch that. All right, the issue is, do we have a last name in the in-text citation? Because typically in an in-text citation, we want the author last name and page number when there's a page number available. Unless, what? Unless the name appears in the sentence. So if the name of the author appears in the sentence, which it does, Bob Johnson, then in that case, you can just use the page number. And if you don't have a page number, in that case, technically, you don't need an in-text citation. I would advise you to put one in the sentence anyway, just to be safe. But technically, you would not necessarily need that. But this sentence is okay. So this one is correctly punctuated. But let's look at these other 2 and see what the problems are, because these are problems that many people run into. According to the article, comma, 82% of single mothers are underemployed. Smith 22, end quote, period. What do you think? That's the problem. Very good. The end quote should go after the D in underemployed. That's the only problem with that sentence. But it is a problem nonetheless. All right, and the last one. Bob Johnson's book specifically states, comma, people are not likely to go to the doctor if they do not have insurance. Johnson 34, period. Is there a problem with this one? Say it again. Okay, so you don't necessarily need Johnson. That is true. However, if you put it in there, I'm not going to mark it off. So we'll say that that's okay. Yes, like right after states, this part, people are not likely to go to the doctor. Why? It's a direct quote, and what indicates that it's a direct quote is that it says the book specifically states. That's saying, like, here are the words from the book. So if you do that, if you're using the words from the book, those need to be in quotation marks, okay? So that would be the problem with that one. All right, number 8, choose the only acceptable use of a colon according to the Purdue Online Writing Lab resource. A, he brought many attributes to the team, leadership, honesty, and diplomacy. B, when she went to the store, comma, she bought, colon, milk, sugar, and bread. Or C, people are not always honest, comma, most of them are, colon, liars. What do you think? What's the rule? What is the rule for using a colon? No, it can precede a list, but it doesn't have to. In most circumstances it will, but it does not have to. Remember, I told you it doesn't matter what comes after the colon. It can be a list, It could be one word. Correct. It has to be the answer to the reader's question. But there was something else that's equally important. There it is. That's the rule. It has to follow an independent clause, which is a complete thought. So let's look for the complete thought. People are not always honest. Most of them are. That kind of leaves you hanging, right? That's not a complete thought. When she went to the store, she bought. That leaves you hanging, right? That's not a complete thought. He brought many attributes to the team. That's your complete thought right there. Okay, so it has to follow a complete thought. It could say, he brought one attribute to the team, leadership. That's not a list, right? That's only one thing, but you could still use the colon in that case because it's saying, well, what was the attribute he brought? That's the question that the reader has. So that's when you use a colon. All right, be careful with those. Number 9, blank are used in the body of a paper to lead the reader to the proper entries on the works cited page. Is it small numbers, endnotes, footnotes, or parenthetical references / in-text citations? D, in-text citations, also called parenthetical references. All right, number 10, when adding an entry for a web source to your works cited page, you must always include the URL. That's false. You don't have to include it anymore. You may, if you choose to, if you think it'd be helpful to me because you don't have the author name or something, you can put it in there. That's fine. You won't lose any points for doing so, but you do not have to, especially if it's really long. Any questions about that quiz? All right, on Wednesday we'll go over the week 4 one. And now let's look at your research paper. We're moving on from the persuasive essay. Hopefully you got it submitted. If not, you have until noon today, I believe, to submit that. So now we're going to move on to the research paper, which is your next formal essay. You have a whole folder here under lessons titled research paper. And there is a plethora of information in this folder. We're going to start with the instructions. Does anybody know how much of your final grade this paper is worth, the research paper? No, let's find out. I think it's 25%. I think this is worth the biggest chunk. This and the final exam. You have more than a week. I think you get 2 or 3. I adjusted the grading categories. That's why I'm double checking. Correct. The research paper is related to your field of study. Okay, so your research paper is worth 20% of your overall grade. All right, so the persuasive essay that you submitted by today was only worth 10% because that's a motive development essay, which you have 2 of, so they're worth 10% each. Research paper is worth double that, and then your final exam is worth 30% at the end of the semester. So this is a big chunk of your grade, so you want to take this one very seriously. Do we take the final exam here? Yes, you will take the final exam here. It's an essay, so no, it's not technically open book. You can use your trimmer book if you want, this one if you have it. It has to be in MLA format. That's why you can use a trimmer book if you have it. I will let you use that. Yeah, that would be okay. All right, these are the guidelines for your research paper. All right, let's start out by talking about choosing your topic. I just said that it has to be related to your field of study or your program. It says this assignment is designed to improve your marketability. I want you guys to get jobs. I want you to be fully employed, in your field of study, because that's usually the point of going to school and pursuing a program. Usually, some people do it just for the knowledge, but for most people, they're trying to get hired somewhere. So I want to improve your marketability. I want to help you. All right, and I'm going to do this by lending you some expertise in your chosen program. All right, you're going to become an expert on something. Therefore, you need to select a specific topic that interests you and is directly related to your area of study at Linear Tech. The specific topic can be a new technology, a new technique, a method, or a procedure, or a current controversial issue or problem in your field. You must research this topic and cite the sources that you consult. Let me give you an example. If, for instance, you were pursuing a degree in criminal justice at Linear Tech, a specific topic would be the use of non-lethal weapons against, civilians. That would be a specific topic. Okay, a specific topic would not be, a career as a police officer or a career as a park ranger. That's way too broad. All right, I'm talking very specific. So like this issue of using non-lethal weapons like mace or stun guns or rubber bullets, all right, that is specific, okay? Notice it says you may not do a general research paper on your field or a position in your field. You are required to write a paper that is, where is my length? 3 to 4 pages. All right, you could not cover everything there is to know about your field or a position in your field in 3 to 4 pages. All right, you could not do it justice. All right, but if you pick something specific, you might be able to say something interesting and learn something interesting about a specific issue or technology or method within your field, okay? Or a current issue, like a controversial issue or a problem. It says if you're unsure of what topic to select or if you need assistance in narrowing a broad topic, first do some preliminary research using the library databases. We have these books now in the library called Taking Sides, and they are related to different industries. Like there are medical books, they're called Taking Sides, and they cover current controversial issues, like maybe cloning or something could be an issue in the medical field, or like biotechnology or something. But we have those books in the library, like actual print books, and we have e-books, thousands and thousands of e-books that you can draw from. Simply looking at the table of contents in these sources should give you some ideas of narrowing your topic. All right, you have to come up with a good topic. If you start with a bad topic, your paper is not going to do very well. Let me go ahead and show you how I would go about trying to narrow my topic if I was having trouble. I would go to the Lanier Tech webpage, I would click on Library under Resources, start your research here on the left-hand side, and I would go to these e-books. Somebody give me a program. Radiology. All right, radiology. So I would search radiology and see what kind of books I come up with. A practical guide to leadership and management in academic radiology, interventional radiology. And what I'm looking at here, I'm looking at dates, because I want something that's relatively recent, all right, especially when it comes to the medical field, because, if something's from 2005, that technology or, those issues could be way out of date by now. This looks somewhat promising, radiology strategies. And if I can look through the table of contents right here, and let's see, value of diagnostic tests, that could be interesting. Different diseases, this is probably talking about strategies for detecting different diseases with radiology, like x-rays or MRIs or CAT scans or whatever it might be. So this is where you're getting more specific, right? Like maybe you're interested in diseases of the head, neck, brain, and nervous system. Well, you can read through this chapter now and see if there's any new technology or new techniques that they're using to discover these types of diseases, right? Using radiology, using imaging, right? So after you read this paragraph, maybe you'll have a better sense of what your specific topic will be. This can become one of your sources, all right? It can, but you're going to need more than one source. Sure. No, you're limited to 5. I didn't get there yet, but you're limited to the number of sources you can use. And I do that for a reason, because if I let you use unlimited sources, people's papers become just regurgitations of what they found, and they don't really gel it together with a thesis statement. And that's the other thing. I'm going to get there right now. You will. You will. If you look hard enough, you will. There are plenty. When you're dealing with the medical industry especially, there's always new equipment coming out and new techniques. And new ways to deal with patients and things like that. So you will be able to find something. It might take you more looking than other people, but you'll be able to. And you can also rely on help from the media specialist upstairs. She's really good at finding stuff. That's her job. That's what she went to school to learn how to do, is do research, so she can help you too. All right. Let me keep going through the instructions, and I'll probably answer some more of your questions. Simply looking at the table of contents in these e-books or the Taking Side books should give you some ideas of a topic, right? Look at these individual chapters within the books, and you can see what's going on in your field of study, right? Maybe somebody is doing like fire science. Firefighting. Maybe they want to, find an issue with firefighting. The making of modern fire service, that could definitely point you to some like current things that are going on with, how firefighters operate today. So you go into these books, look at the table of contents, and see if you can find anything that interests you. All right, it's a lot easier to write this paper if it's something you're interested in, which is why the paper is generally based on your program of study, right? I didn't pick your program of study for you, you did. And I'm assuming that you're interested in your program of study. And if you're not, you should probably pick a different program of study. All right, I had somebody that told me one time, well, my program's boring. I said, well, pick a different program. I didn't pick that for you. That's your thing. That's what you say you want to study. All right, so you already got some say in this topic, and you get even more when you get into the details of it. This is that firefighting book right here. So learning to control building fires. There you go. That sounds like a technique or a strategy that firefighters use. All right, so you could go in depth with that and see what the chapter says. All right, but that's specific topic, not just, here's an overview of what a firefighter does. That's way too broad, way too general. All right. And the reason I'm doing this, it really is to improve your marketability. If you get into an interview situation and you can talk specifically about how you've studied controlling building fires and structure fires, and based on current research, these new strategies and techniques, or one technique very well, that makes you a better employee, right? That makes you a better firefighter for that firefighting department, because you could maybe help share that knowledge to other people. Most people, when they pursue advanced degrees, they have to write a doctoral thesis or a master's thesis, and they have to pick something very specific. When I had to do my master's thesis, I picked problems encountered by first-year teachers. That was a very self-serving project for me to pick, because I was going to be a first-year teacher. So I wanted to figure out what kind of problems are these people running into, and how can I avoid them. So when I got in an interview situation, I could say, hey, I've studied the problems of first-year teachers, and I know how I'm going to avoid those, so that I don't quit after 1 year or 2 years like a lot of teachers do. I was already prepared. So that's something else you could consider. Maybe problems of, newly hired people in your field of study. Right? I don't know if, yeah, it was extremely difficult. It took me forever, but I was able to do it. It was worth the work that I put into it, because I did find good information, but it was literally finding needles in a haystack. But, once you find that stuff, sometimes you can find the perfect article too. I found articles that were looking at the same exact thing I was looking at. So that was very helpful. All right. It says if you're still stuck, you can ask the instructors in your program to help you identify a topic that will benefit you upon completion of the program. So maybe you're studying accounting here, and you're like, I looked at these e-books, I still can't really decide. I don't know which one's worth studying. Maybe this wouldn't really help me, get a job. You could ask the teachers here that teach accounting and say, hey, you're familiar with this, with this particular program. What do you think would benefit me to learn a lot about in depth? And maybe they could point you in the right direction. All right, so you could use the teachers here too. If you're enrolled in a general education program like the Technical Specialist Certificate, start thinking about what you're going to pursue after that. If you're going to use that as a transfer certificate, and it has to be related to whatever degree or career that you're going to pursue after your general education courses at Linear Tech. All right, basic guidelines. Please include your field of study next to your name in the heading. Everybody forgets to do that for some reason, and then I don't know whether or not your topic is tied to your program. All right, because I don't want to have to do the extra work of researching what your program of study is. right? Because that takes me a little bit of time to do. So please, next to your name, put your program of study so I know that your topic is related to it. All right, style. You'll write your paper just like your persuasive essay using MLA style. Additional factors, it is to be double-spaced, just like your persuasive essay. It should be 3 to 4 pages, not including the works cited page. That's 3 full pages to 4 full pages. No cover or title sheet is required based on MLA style. It's an academic paper, so only use third-person language, because we know that first-person language can hurt your credibility, and second-person language makes assumptions on the part of the reader, which you don't want to do. All right, thesis statement. This is very important. It must be a persuasive thesis statement, which you should be somewhat familiar with, because that's what your first essay was. It has to be persuasive. All right, it cannot just be a strictly informative research paper, because those bore me to tears. Okay, I'm sorry, but there are certain things about fire science I just don't care to know about. However, if you make it persuasive, that makes it a lot more interesting, because now I'm looking at your use of logic, your use of rhetoric, how you're trying to persuade the reader that you're correct, how you use official sources to support your thesis. That's interesting to me. Maybe not the content itself, but how you support a persuasive thesis. That is interesting to me, and I can stay with that. All right, so it has to be persuasive. You have to say, the use of non-lethal weapons against civilians is leading to, leading to corruption in the police force. All right, that's pretty persuasive. That's interesting to read. All right, so if it's persuasive, it's better. If you're dealing with like a medical technology, like in radiology, you could say the use of 4D ultrasound technology is actually a waste of money. Like, oh, really? That's interesting. I'll read that. And I'll say, well, why does this person think it's a waste of money? How do they prove it with the sources that they can find? Okay, so if you're dealing with like a new technology, usually it's either beneficial to your industry or not beneficial, and you can make that determination based on the research you do. Okay? All right, sources. You must incorporate 3 minimum of 3 sources. 2 of them have to be scholarly. All right, what do I mean by scholarly sources? Those are journal articles that are found within Galileo, or nonfiction books. Those could be ebooks or print. I'll give you a hint. Ebooks are much easier to use and much easier to find than journal articles. Now, journal articles can be better because they might be specifically about the exact topic you're looking for, and someone kind of already did a lot of the work for you, but they're tougher to find. So it's kind of a trade-off there. All right. But if you're struggling finding journal articles, switch to the ebooks. They're a lot easier to access and to use. And you might find some that have the perfect information for you. All right, don't use outdated sources. Usually more than 5 years old is too old for most of the programs that we have here at this school. Avoid those for current topics unless you're providing some kind of vital historical background that you need. Find your scholarly sources through the library databases, which may be accessed through, they could be accessed through home if you have the Galileo password. You may incorporate no more than 3 scholarly and 2 credible web sources. So up here it said minimum, 2 scholarly, 1 credible web source. A credible web source is like, a .org or a .edu. Those are usually pretty good. .gov sites are pretty good too. So you need 3 minimum. Maximum would be 5, 3 scholarly and 2 credible web sources. Papers that solely use websites, even credible websites, will not receive a passing grade on this assignment. Right, because you didn't do scholarly research. That's part of the requirements for this course. All right, I didn't write that requirement, but you are required to do scholarly research, which means you have to use scholarly sources, which could be those ebooks. All right, so you have to use those in order to pass the assignment. Consider the ebook is not necessarily a website. It was, yeah, you're right, it was kind of found through a website. It was found through Galileo, but it's not a website itself. Okay? If you have any questions about it, just make sure to ask me. But if you use an ebook, that you should be good. Wikipedia, blogs, and .com sites are typically not credible. .org, .gov, and .edu usually work. If you have any questions, if you find a .com that you think is credible and you want to check, you can ask me or ask the library specialist, and she can help you too. All right, incorporating your sources. Well, the entirety of a source that you select does not have to support your thesis. Make sure that the information you use from the given source does support your thesis. So what that means is, if I use that firefighting book, just because only 1 out of the 10 chapters is related to my thesis, that doesn't mean I can't use that source. I'm just using the information from the 1 chapter. And as long as that directly supports my thesis, I'm in good shape. So if you find a book and you're like, well, most of this book isn't about my topic, but there is one chapter about your topic, then you're in good shape. You can use that book as your source. Does that make sense? Yes. It says, well, you may use block quotations. It's recommended that you paraphrase long quotations instead of having them represent a significant portion of the paper. Remember, you're supporting a persuasive thesis statement, which includes an opinion. So you have to develop this opinion and think of ways to support it, and I want your commentary based on the official sources that you used. I don't just want official source information throughout the paper, right? I want it to be your paper, not just, a collage of other people's ideas. Does that make sense? Okay. Do not use standalone quotations. Use signal phrases to help you introduce direct quotations. In order to receive a passing grade for the assignment, outside sources cannot comprise more than 40% of the paper. That's why I say avoid those long block quotations and paraphrase them, because it'll end up taking up too much. Best papers usually utilize like 5 to 20% outside sources in their text. All right, everything must be documented, just like your persuasive essay. If you're unsure what you're doing, make sure you ask or you will fail the assignment. There are some helpful sources here for documenting. We already covered most of it with the persuasive essay, but there are instructions there if you need them. Any questions right now about the research paper? Go ahead. If it's general knowledge, it doesn't have to be cited, but be careful. If you're not sure, check with me. All right? If it's something that you think 9 out of 10 people on the street would already know, then it doesn't have to be cited. Any other questions about the research paper? Let's look at the timeline for this. Somebody asked how long do you get for it? Yes. You're going to submit a rough draft. You're going to do a peer mark assignment for it. Look at other people's. Other people are going to look at yours. Then you're going to resubmit. Let's see. Research paper rough draft is due this coming Monday. So you have to get the rough draft done in a week, which is not a lot of time. I wonder if I could extend that. Hold on, I'm trying to think if there's a reason that I didn't extend it to begin with, because I don't want to back you up with like 2 assignments. We have a midterm, but we don't have a midterm test. I suppose we could make the rough. Oh, okay. Here's why I have it due by Monday. This was my thinking. My thinking was I want the rough draft of the research paper due by Monday because the midterm is the following week. If someone didn't complete the rough draft of their research paper, they're probably too far behind in the class to pass. And I want to give people the option to drop the class before the midterm, because if you drop before the midterm, it doesn't affect your GPA. So that was my thinking. But maybe I could still extend it somewhat into that week. Maybe I could make it due on the date of the midpoint, which I'm not sure what that is right now. The midpoint of the semester? There's not a midterm test, no. Not in this class, anyway. Well, I want people to have the option to drop the class in case they couldn't keep up with the assignments and they couldn't keep up with the research paper. That's going to really set them back and make it difficult for them to pass. So I want them to have the option, if they need to drop the class before the midpoint. That's why I make this assignment due then. That's what I'm looking into right now. That's what I'm checking. With your grade? You can run a report from ENGL. I'll show you how to after class if you need to. All right, so the midpoint is, the midpoint is the 24th, which is Monday. So that was my thinking anyway. No, you don't. I don't believe so. Well, let's see. Let's check it out. You do have a quiz, and let's see what it's based on. It's based on this stuff, which we're going to go over on class. We're going to go over in class on these three topics on Wednesday. So it's not like you have a whole lot of outside reading to do. This is directly from your Squire textbook. The quiz this week is based on, and it's only a couple pages. Parallelism is 2 pages, comma splice is 1 page, and sexism is 2 pages. So it's based on the 3 concepts. We'll go over them on Wednesday in class. How about this? Maybe I could... Because I don't want to rush you into the rough draft. The problem is we're in a shortened semester. You know, typically if you took this class in the fall or the spring, you would get an extra week to do the rough draft, but we only get 10 weeks instead of 15 now. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good question too. Well, it depends. Like if it's due here if it's due on Monday, then you get a whole nother, let's see, you get a whole nother 3 weeks to complete it. But I don't want people handing in half of a rough draft. Like a rough draft means 3 to 4 full pages with the research. So I'll push it back a full week. We'll make the rough draft due on the 1st. But that's going to give you a lot less time to complete your final draft. And since we don't have class this week of the 4th of July, that's an off week for us, when you come back on this Monday, we're going to have the peer mark assignment, so you're going to have to look at 2 other people's papers, you're going to have to critique them, and then you're going to get your feedback, and you're only going to have a little bit of time to make adjustments and corrections for your final draft. Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying. No, the only assignment you'll have is to work on your final draft. And I think what I'll do is I'll set the peer mark assignment to start during this off week. I won't make it due until you come back. You know, I won't make it due until maybe the 9th or the 10th or something. But that'll give you some time. If you choose to, you can do it during that off week and do your peer marks and look at other people's papers. Go ahead. Correct. Or Wednesday the 3rd. Right. That whole week we're off. The whole campus is pretty much closed. All right. So we're going to move the due date then for the rough draft to the 1st instead of the 24th. So you'll get 2 weeks to do your research and to write your rough drafts. All right. Other questions about the research paper? All right, let's take a look. Let's go back to that folder where I had all the information for the research paper. So here's your checklist for this week. Work on your research paper, create a thesis statement and outline, begin writing a rough draft. None of that really changes. You're still going to be doing that. Your quiz will be based on those 3 concepts, and that's it for this week. I have an outline or an essay planner for your research paper in the research paper folder. So this might help you if you're the type of person that needs a little bit of help getting organized. You can use this. You got your name, your program of study, persuasive thesis statement, and then your main points. I have 6 main points here, which will probably serve for a 3 to 4 page paper. You might be able to do it with fewer. You might need more. Okay, it's kind of up to you. You might be able to do it with as few as 3. I said these other 3 are kind of optional, based on what you're able to find and what your persuasive thesis statement is and how you want to support it. It's always good to consider your opponent's arguments when you're doing a persuasive piece of writing. Where does it fit? Like if your opponent does have a good argument, which main point does it fit with? Do you have a rebuttal? What kind of evidence do you need to support your points? So if you develop a persuasive thesis statement that says 4D ultrasound technology is a waste of time and money for radiologists. If that's your persuasive thesis, you need to start thinking like, what are your main points? And then, where do you need evidence to support it? Like, if you're going to say because it's too costly, it's not cost effective, then you put that here. What kind of evidence do you need? You need to prove that it's not cost effective, and that supports main point number 1. This just helps you organize your thoughts if you want to use this. Right? It's not required. You don't have to hand this in, but it's there for you if you need it. You don't have to, but you probably should. It will help your paper a lot if you do. Whenever you're trying to persuade someone, you're picking an issue where there's probably 2 sides. There's almost always 2 sides to a good argument. If you just say, radiology is an important part of the medical profession, like that's not really controversial. There's no 2 sides to that topic, so that probably wouldn't work. But if you're arguing about a specific technique or technology, there are always going to be some people saying, yeah, it's good, or no, it's not very good. No, if it's related to your field, then that's fine. Yes. Yeah, I would encourage it. I would encourage it. If you're not sure about your topic, definitely email me and I'll either approve it or I'll try and give you some guidance on how you could adjust it. All right, other things in the research paper folder that are helpful. Don't worry too much about the peer edit worksheet. That's going to be basically your peer mark assignment, so you don't have to worry too much about that. I give you a checklist, which might be helpful for you. And it looks like this. Just you can go through and say, okay, yes, I have a header. Yes, I have a heading. Yes, I have an original title. These ones that are underlined and in bold, if you don't have these, you'll fail, so I would definitely check these. Did you use 3 total sources? Check that off. Or at least 2 scholarly? Check that off. Is 1 non-scholarly? Do you have in-text citations? Each time you included information from the source. Do you have a corresponding works cited entry for each in-text citation? Do you have a works cited page? Is each source on the works cited page incorporated into the paper with an in-text citation? It seems like I'm asking the same thing over and over again, but they're different ideas. So you want to check those. Are your quotations of 4 lines or text or more properly formatted if you use them? Notice that one's not in bold and underlined. If you made a mistake and didn't do a block quotation, you wouldn't fail. You'd just probably lose a few points for your documentation. Okay? So that might help you a little bit. Let's see what else I have there for you. I believe this is the Bedford St. Martin's website that can help you create your works cited entries. If you use the ebooks, like this is the firefighting ebook. I believe if you click cite here on the right hand side, it will give you, yes, MLA works cited entry. So right there, you could basically copy and paste it. Yeah, that way you don't have to create it on your own. But double check just to make sure, like I'm going to look and say, okay, Crucible of Fire, yeah, that's the book I was looking at. I'll go back. Yeah, for ebooks, it will create the citations for you. Go to the book, and then on the right-hand side where it says cite. But just double check and make sure, I'm going to look at the author's name, Hensler. The title of the book is Crucible of Fire. So when I click on the site, that better match, and it does. Hensler, Crucible of Fire, so I'm probably in good shape there. You can use up to 3. And up to 2 credible web sources. Yes, yes, because when you're in the book, like when I click on the book, if you've never seen an ebook before, or if you've never seen one through the EBSCO host, like if I just want to look in that one chapter about controlling building fires, it tells me right here, it's page 135. See it right there. So yes, you would cite the page number. But that's it. And you have access to that 24/7 unless somebody checks it out. Yes, Joanne? I won't be picky about that. As long as you have the date where the date goes, then you're fine. All right, other things in the research paper folder that you might want to be familiar with. This document shows you how to integrate quotations, so you don't have standalone quotations, right? And those are things like according to Dr. So-and-so, and then you put the quote. Those are your words before the quotation, so that will help you with that. This is a sample outline. This is actually similar to what my master's thesis was about the problems with new teachers. This is teacher attrition rate, which is like, attrition is like when you lose part of a workforce, like when people quit. So this will show you what I came up with. So this is what my sample outline would look like, and I have my main points and supporting points, and I have where I'm going to incorporate my outside sources. All right, so if I have my main point is alternate preparation programs like Teach for America or strictly online certifications, I could say, right here is where I found some information that I want to incorporate into my paper. Okay, so you can, that way you know when you actually sit down to write the paper where your information is going to fit. All right, where that outside information fits with your thoughts. So that's there as an outline. I have a sample introduction if you're interested in that. And then finally, there are sample research papers that actual students completed. There are 3 different ones. They all have their own problems. All right, I don't show you perfect ones because I want you to be aware of the problems that you could run into. And at the very bottom, there are evaluations of those 3 sample papers. So it will say, student 1 didn't include in-text citations on page 2. Or student 3, did not have corresponding works cited entries for all the information they included, or whatever it might be. All right, so there are evaluations of these 3 papers as well. Any questions? No? All right, so this week you're going to have a quiz, and you're going to start your rough draft. It won't be due until July 1st. Okay?